In this chapter, we're going to be working on the front end of the car. We're going to finish off the bumper area for the guide mesh. Then after we're finished that, we're actually going to make the final hood piece and the bumper mesh. And then in the next section, we'll head off onto the side of the car and start working our way toward the back. So let me get out of full screen. And here's what we've got so far. So let me full screen this. I'll press Control and up to do that. And let me go into top view by pressing numpad 7. And I'll press tab to go into edit mode. Let's start off with finishing off this area right here. So let me press B and left click and drag over all those vertices and all of those as well, stopping just to the left of that white line right there. Now with these selected, let's press E and then press Y to extrude them straight down all the way to right there. I was looking at the vertices down here, making sure they were aligned with the blueprints. Let me press the Z key for wireframe, then I'll press G, and I'll press the down arrow a couple times until those two vertices are centered right there. And let me take that one. I'll move it up just a touch. All right, and we're going to do the same thing with the rest of these vertices. We're just going to slide them all straight up so that they fit on the white lines. So I'll select that, press G twice and slide it up right into the middle of the white line. Hold Shift if I need to for precise movements. And I'll do the same thing with the rest of these as well. Now let's make sure that some of our lines coming down follow the same trajectory as the edges above them. For example, I'm going to select that vertex, I'll press G twice and I'll slide it to the left. So it follows that same curvature coming all the way down. And these obviously need to be moved to align with the blueprint line right there for the crease. So let me press B and left click and drag over them. And then I'll press G and I'll move them right there. And same thing with these three vertices here. Let me press A to deselect them. Press B, left click and drag over them, and then press G and move them right there. Now let's hold Alt and right click on that edge there to select the whole edge loop, and then I'll press numpad 1 for front view. Now let's align these with the blueprints in front view. So I'll press G and then Z to move them straight down all the way to there. I'm paying attention to the left vertices, getting them aligned first. And I drop them right in the middle. So let's do the same thing with all the others. So I'll right click on that to select it, then press G and then Z and move it straight up to the middle of the blueprint line. And let's do the same thing with the rest of these. These are a little slanted, but don't worry about that. We'll probably not end up with having three vertices packed together like that once we figure out what we're going to do with the creases. And let me move these to the left a little bit as well to line up with the crease on the blueprints. And then we'll just continue doing the same thing for the rest of the vertices. Move them straight up on the Z axis. Actually, over here, we're going to need to space these out. So let's start off with that vertex there. I'll move that to be right about there. I'll move that to be right there, and we'll space this out over here by bringing that to the right, just like that. That looks pretty spaced out evenly to me. And we have a big expanse here, so it's going to be kind of flat in that area, and I think it should be a little bit rounded. So let's add an extra edge loop straight down the middle of this. So I'll press Control and R, and left click once I have a vertical edge loop highlighted there, and then I'll right click to keep it in the middle. Now we need to make this rounded off just a little bit, so let's start up at the top here. So I'll zoom in and I'll press G, and then I'll press the up arrow just a few times to make it slightly rounded at the very top. And now let's hold Shift and right click on that to deselect it, and then right click on it to select it again so that it's active. And in our header menu down here for the pivot points, let's make sure we have active element selected because we're going to scale everything up on the Z axis to that vertex so we can round everything else off with some kind of progression going downward. And you can see how much we need to scale this up right here. We need to get this vertex in the middle of that white line. So let me press S and then Z to scale up toward that vertex on the Z axis and get that vertex right in the middle of that blueprint line. And there we go. So everything looks good now, except this vertex here. So let me select that. I'll press G and I'll move that down right on the blueprint lines there. All right, how's everything looking? It's looking pretty good. Let me go into top view by pressing numpad 7. Make sure everything is aligned from this view. So with that vertex selected, I'll press G and then Y, move it down, and I'll do the same thing for all the others. And now we need to get an edge loop going through the middle of this, because right now it just kind of starts dipping down a little bit too quickly and a little bit too flat there. Actually, before we do that, we should straighten these vertices out for the creases, just because I don't know exactly what I'm going to be doing with these yet. So let me select each of these. I'll press G and then Z in front view and get them up in the middle of those blueprint lines. And we'll do the same thing from top view. So let me press numpad 7 for top view, and now I'll press G and Y and get them in the middle of those lines. And I'll do that for each set of vertices for the creases. Alright, that's good to go. Now let's get an edge loop going straight through the middle. So I'll press Ctrl and R to add an edge loop, and as soon as I have a horizontal line highlighted, I'll left click and then right click to keep them in place. And now I'll press numpad 3 for side view, and I'm kind of tempted to just move it like that, but then it moves the vertices on the side here a little bit too high. You can see it's coming down and all of a sudden it bumps up a little bit and over. So we're going to have to think about this. Let me press Ctrl and Z to undo that. And then go into side view. And I think I'll worry about this vertex right here first. So right here we have this diagonal line. It's pretty straight. So we just need to move this up a teeny tiny bit. So I'm going to press G. I'll move it up and to the left just a little like that. And that should get me a good curvature. Let me hold Alt and right click on that edge loop there, just to see how this looks. Then I'll press numpad 3 for side view, and then Z for wireframe. And as long as we have a good curvature from this view, then we're good to go. I think we can move things up just a tiny bit more. So let me hold Alt and right click on that edge right there. Then I'll press G, move it up with the up arrow on the keyboard a couple of times. And that should do the trick. All right, that looks like a good curve. But you can see we need to move these vertices up to meet up with those blueprints a little bit more. So let me hold Alt and right click on that edge loop there to select everything. Now all these vertices are good to go. So let me press B and middle click and drag over all of them. And then holding Shift, I'll right click on that one again to select it. And again, let's make sure we have active element set as the pivot point. And then I'll press numpad 3 for side view. And then I'll press S and then Y and just scale that away until we have a good match on the blueprints like that. All right, let's see how everything looks. It's looking good. All right, let me press tab to go back into edit mode. Let's take care of this corner here now. Now to simplify things, let's get rid of this one edge loop right here. So I'm going to hold Alt, right click on that edge, and then press X and erase the edge loop. We'll add that back in once we're finished, but that just simplifies what we need to do in this area for right now. Now, how are we going to do this? Let's see. Let's right click on that vertex to select it. I'll press numpad 7 for top view. I'll hold Shift and right click on that one, and then I'll press F to join them with an edge. And now I'll press Ctrl and R, highlight a vertex in the middle of that, and then left click. Now with this new vertex selected, I'll press G, and I'll bring that out to about right there. Now what I'm doing there is just trying to continue this curvature all the way around. So now we have a nice corner right here that we made with this vertex just by pulling it to the right a little bit. Now let's create a face there. So I'm going to select all 4 of those vertices and press F. And still in top view, what I'll do now is right click on that vertex to select it, then press E, and I'll extrude it to that line right there, right in the middle of that vertex and that one. And now let me press numpad 1 for front view, and let's make sure that stays on the blueprint line. It looks like I got to move it down on the Z-axis just a little bit. Cool. Now let me select those 2 vertices and I'll press F, and I'll select those 2 and press F. Now let's see how that looks. Now let's make sure that the curvature in this area is good to go. So let me press the N key for the right side toolbar. Click on the matte cap and let's go for our red there. Let me see. Let me get out of edit mode, see how the reflections pass through the area. I think we nailed it. You might need to move this vertex either up or down a little bit, but I think mine's good to go. Let me space these vertices out a little bit here. I'll select that and just press G twice and slide to the right just to get the spacing there more even. It's going to help the curvature a little bit. All right, cool. Reflections are passing through that area perfectly. And now let's deal with these creases here. So let me press numpad 7 for top view. And I know the crease on the right here, it stops a little bit shorter than the one on the left. So let's deal with this one first. What I'll do is I'll select all 3 of these vertices, press W and choose merge at the center. And we'll do the same thing with these 3. So select those 3, and you can actually press Shift and R now, which will repeat the last process, which would be merging at the center. So let me get out of edit mode, see how the crease looks. Crease isn't looking too good. You can see it kind of dips in the middle, and that's because we have a triangle there. So let me select all 4 of those vertices, and I'll press F to create a quad. It's a weird quad, but it definitely gives us better results. Let me switch back to our reflective silver here. And it's almost good. It's just slightly sharper than the rest of the crease. I don't think that's going to matter when we put the actual mesh on top. But what we can do just to soften that up is select that vertex. And I'll press G twice and I'll slide it away just a little bit. Just so the geometry there is not being pinched so much. And I'll do the same thing with this one. And I'll slide these away just slightly as well. So that definitely helped a little bit. And yeah, that definitely helped. That's going to look fine once we go to put the final mesh on top. All right, with that finished, let's deal with the crease right here now. So I think with this, what I'll do is just separate the bottom vertices. Let me press Control and up and check out the reference picture. So it looks like that crease, like there's a hint of it in this area. It almost reaches that edge right there. So let me press Control and up on our 3D view again. So yeah, what I'll do with this is just select that, press G twice and slide it away. Same thing with this. I'll slide that to the right. And that softens it before it reaches the edge. Yeah, that looks fine to me. Let me press numpad 7, go back into edit mode. Now let's make sure the vertices that we moved are still aligned with the blueprints. And we need to make sure also that all these vertices are spaced out evenly. So what I'll do is I'll select that, I'll press G twice and slide it to the left. Slide that a little bit as well. And now I'll press G and just move it down a little bit. And let me select that and I'll press G twice, slide to the right. I'll select this, press G and just move it into the middle. We should probably slide this one a little bit too. So let me press G twice. I'll slide it to right about there. Looks fine to me. It's going to be hard to space these out perfectly evenly, but I think we have plenty of space in between them. All right, and all the others look good. So let's just go into front view by pressing numpad 1. And I'll press Z for wireframe. Let's just make sure everything's falling on the blueprint lines still. I know that these are a little bit off, but I was worried more about the subsurfed mesh aligning with the blueprints, which it pretty much does. It's good enough. All right, cool. That's looking good to me. And now let's add back in those edge loops we took out, or that edge loop we took out. So I'm going to press Control and R until I have that edge loop highlighted. Then I'll press left click, press E and then F to align it with the right side, and we'll drop this right about there. Same spacing up here as we had over here. And it got a little bit weird at this vertex there, which sometimes that happens. So I'll just right click on that to select it and press G twice and slide to the right a little bit. So the spacing's the same. And while we're at it, let's add a third edge loop right over here to surround this corner. So I'll press Control and R, left click there, press E to align it with the left, and I'll drop that right there. All right, let me press Tab to get out of edit mode and see how everything looks so far. So let's press Tab to go back into edit mode and press numpad 1 for front view. Now we're going to extrude some of these vertices straight down to this line right here. So let's see. Let me start with that vertex there, and then I'll hold Shift and I'll right click on all of these up until, let's go to right there. I don't want to go any higher because when we extrude that down, then that face becomes a little bit too distorted. So now let's press E and then Z and extrude it down to about right there, I guess. Well, let's pay attention to the left vertices. I'll put them on the line first, right there. And to make our lives easier, let's straighten this line out a little bit. So let me hold Shift. I'll right click on that vertex and then do it again so that's an active selection. And we should still have active element selected as a pivot point. And now I'll just press S and then Z. I'll straighten that line out a little bit so that it's closer to the blueprint line shape. That way we don't have to move those vertices too far away from each other or too far away to meet up with the blueprint line. All right, let's start on the right side down here. Let me right click on that. And I'm not going to have this come straight down. We need to cover more space with this. So let me press G and I'll move that all the way over to about right there, right in the middle of that line. And the rest of these, I'm basically just going to get them on the blueprint line and space them out as evenly as I can. I'm not going to be able to space them out perfectly evenly because we have more vertices down here than we do down here. There is actually an add-on to have all these vertices be spaced out perfectly evenly, but it won't look good in the end because we have too many down here and too few down here. So let's just do this manually. Let me right click on that vertex. I'll press G and I'll move that to about right there. Let me press Z for wireframe. And now I'm just going to go through. I'll space these out as evenly as I can. while making sure the vertices are in the middle of the blueprint line. So now we can start spacing things out a little bit more than they were just by selecting them and pressing G twice and sliding them. All right, I think that looks good. And now let's hold Alt and right click on that edge loop. And we're gonna do some aligning in top view. So let's press numpad 7. Then I'll press G and middle click as I drag down. And I'll get those vertices on the left aligned perfectly on the blueprints. Now let's just select one vertex at a time and press G and then Y and move that into place. Now let's go into side view by pressing numpad 3 and let's add some edge loops in the middle of this. I'm going to add 2 of them, so let's press Ctrl and R, get a highlight going there, and then scroll up on the mouse until we have 2 edge loops there, and then left click and right click to keep them right in the middle. Now this area here is pretty much flat, but I'm going to round it off just slightly. So I'm going to press G, then I'll press the left arrow on the keyboard just a few times like that, just to give it a slight bump. All right, I'll leave those edge loops as they are, and now what we'll do is we're going to connect this vertex with this one up here. So I'm going to select both of them, and then I'll press F, and now we need to add 2 vertices in the middle of this. So I'm going to press Ctrl and R over that edge there, and then scroll up on the mouse until I have 2 purple dots. They're kind of tiny, but they're there. And I'll left click to place them there. Now let's go into top view. And I'm going to try and round this off to follow the same curvature as the surrounding edges. So I'll just press G, and I'll move that down to about right there. Should be okay. And let me get rid of this edge loop right here for right now. Let me hold Alt, right click on that edge there. It selects the whole edge loop. Then I'll press X and erase the edge loop. Again, just to simplify the area so we can face this up easier. And let me select those 2 vertices and I'll press F a couple of times all the way down the line just like that. Let's go into front view by pressing numpad 1, and I'm just trying to make sure that this area is going to look good. Let me press numpad 3 for side view. It actually does look good as is. Let me switch over to our red matcap again and just rotate the view, make sure the reflections pass through that pretty cleanly and in a way that makes sense. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Cool. And now let's bring back in that edge loop we deleted so we can sharpen up this bevel here. Let's press Ctrl and R right through there, left click, and then press E to align it with the left side edges, and we'll drag that to about right there. Let's get out of edit mode, check out that bevel. Looks nice. Reflections passing through everything look nice. All right, now what we're going to do is start facing up this area here. So let's see, let's press numpad 3 for side view. And I guess we'll be connecting that vertex with this one, but this one's a little bit low. I want to try and follow this line right here. So let me press B and left click and drag over those vertices right there. And I'll press G twice and I'll just slide that up to about right there. And just simply sliding that, it kept it in place for the most part, but it also pulled it in a little bit and ruined the circular shape. So I'm going to press G and move that to the left, just a little bit like that. And now let's center this edge loop out here. So I'm going to hold Alt and right click on that. Then I'll press G twice and slide it up. And again, we're going to have to move this to the left a little as well. So I'll press G, then press the left arrow until that subsurface geometry is circular again. Right about there, it looks good. We can just zoom out and get out of edit mode and make sure that's circular. Yeah, that looks good. We can always fix that up later on anyway. All right, now let's right click on that vertex, hold shift and right click on that one and press F. And that angle's about the same. It's not exactly the same, but it's good enough. That's not a hard edge right there anyway. That just kind of is the transition where the curvature is coming forward and then it pulls back a little bit. All right, now how many vertices do we need in the middle of this? I really do not know. Let's press Ctrl and R and hover over that edge, then scroll up on the mouse. Let's see, 4, maybe 5. Let's go with 5 vertices and then left click to place those vertices there. And now let's press numpad 7 for top view. Now what we need to do is just pull these down to meet up with the blueprints. So let me select that vertex. And I'm not going to move it straight down or straight to the right. I'm going to move it down at an angle to the closest point on the blueprints. That's going to keep the spacing between them all pretty consistent. All right, how's that spacing look? Spacing looks good. Let's go into side view. It's, is it bowed upward a little bit? A little bit. So let's straighten that out a little. So I'll select that vertex, press G and then Z and move it down. I'll just do that until we kind of straighten this out a little. Is that better? Let me move this one up on the Z axis. Yeah, that looks good. Let me press numpad 1 for front view, see how this looks. It's kind of off in front view, but again, that line there is just a guide basically. There's no hard edge right there. Let me move this vertex up a little bit. Whatever, that's fine for now. We can fix that later if we want to. All right, now we gotta start facing up this area here. And to simplify things, again, we should probably think about getting rid of this edge loop. However, I know that's connected to a complex area over here, so I don't want to delete the edge loop. But I will, however, select that one vertex right there. Then I'll press X and I'll dissolve the vertex. So that leaves our edge loop intact over there, and it gives us an n-gon right here. So once we're done facing up this area, we'll add an extra edge loop through here, and we'll make sure it connects with our already existing edge loop up there. All right, let's see. So let's start by selecting that vertex. I'll press G twice and slide it down a little bit. And we're going to connect that to this vertex here. So I'll select those two, then I'll press F. And we need an edge, or we need a vertex in the middle. So let me press Control and R and left click in the middle. Now let's select those two vertices, and I'll press F twice down the line. Let me press numpad 3 for side view. And I don't know if I should do anything with this vertex from this view. I think it's good as is. But we'll see how the curvature is later on once we face up the whole area, and then we'll push some vertices if we need to. All right, now let's start facing up this area here. And actually, let me go into front view. I don't think I captured the curvature here that well. It looks pretty flat right there. So let me, with that vertex still selected, I'll press X and delete it, since I need to move the vertices above it a little bit. Let me select those two. I'll press G and then X and move it to the right for a curvature that makes more sense there. All right, now we can select these two vertices, press F again, and again press Control and R to add a vertex in the middle. Then select those two and press F all the way down. And now let's work on the spacing of the vertices over here a little bit. And since I'm moving these vertices around, it's probably going to screw up the vertices along this edge loop. So let me hold Alt and right click on that edge to select the whole edge loop. I'll press X and I'll delete the edge loop. We'll add that back in once we're finished everything. Now let's space things out a little bit better. So I'll select this vertex, press G twice and slide it down a little bit. And then I'll select these two, press G twice and slide it up to about there. And we'll slide these just a touch as well. All right, that's looking better. Now the reflections in this area are a little bit weird, but I think it's just because we didn't face up the rest of the area. So we'll deal with that later on. All right, let's hop on over here and let's just start adding faces where we know we can and where we know they need to be. So let me select these four vertices and press F. And I'll select those two and press F 2 more times. And let me press numpad 1 for front view. Now you can see we have these edges slanted to the left a little bit, and then all of a sudden they slant to the right. At this point, I kind of want them to be straight and go straight down, and if anything, curve to the left a little bit. So here's what I'll do. I'll select this vertex, press G and then X, and move it to the right just a little bit like that until the bottom edge is pretty much straight. Same thing with this one, except I'll leave that curvature there just a little bit. And we'll do the same thing with this. Press G and then X. And that looks good to me. Okay. Let me go into side view. Just make sure that curvature still looks good from that view. And top view as well. And cool, everything's looking fine. Now we need some extra edge loops in the middle of here. Now I think we need 2 edge loops through the middle of here. So that means we'll need 2 edge loops over here as well. Let me hold Alt and right click on that edge right there. Then I'll press Control and B for the bevel tool, and that'll split that into 2 for us. We'll split it apart to about right there. And I think that flattens the area out a little bit, so let me just press G, and I'll press the left arrow and move it up a little bit as well, just a little bit like that to restore the shape. I'll press numpad 1 for front view, and let's press Control and R right through the middle there, and scroll up on the mouse until we have 2 cuts, then left click and right click to keep them in the middle. Now this edge loop here, I want this to go straight across. So let me go back into side view by pressing numpad 3. Let me select that vertex there, Press G twice and slide it down. And I'll do the same thing with this one. And now let's hold Alt and right click on that edge loop, then hold Alt and Shift and right click on that one. And let's get this area rounded off. So I'll just press G. I'll move that up to about right there. Now let's hold Alt and right click on that edge loop. And let's align this with the bottom edges by pressing G twice and then press E and then F. And we'll drag that down to right there. That way we can face this up. And let's face it up over here too. All right, that's looking good there. And let's see. Might as well face the rest of it up. So I'll select those two vertices and press F all the way down. All right, cool. Reflections are passing through that area nicely. Let me press numpad 1 for front view, make sure all the curves make sense. Let me select that. I'll press G twice and slide down a little bit. Whoops. And yeah, everything's looking good there. Now, what are we going to do with this section? I think we should connect these two. So let me select that one, hold Shift and select that. Then press W and choose Merge at Last. And then press the B key and then left click and drag over those vertices and then press F. Now that creates kind of a mess in that area. But if you go into front view and in wireframe view to see the blueprints, you can see we're cutting out that entire area. So it really doesn't matter if the faces are really screwed up right there. We just need the reflections to be good at the bottom of the headlight and on the side and on this sliver of the side right there as well, which everything does look good in those areas. So we just left with the quad here. So let me select those two vertices and press F. All right, it didn't work. Let me select these two and press F. There we go. Now we might need to push some vertices around to fix some of the reflections, but we've got everything faced up. So let's just work on those reflections right now. All right, so there's definitely something going on right here. You can tell by the way the reflections are kind of stretching up from basically these two vertices. So let's just start over with this. I'm going to press X and delete them too. Then I'll select these four vertices and press F. Then press Control and R right down the middle, left click and right click. Now press numpad 7 for top view and let's realign this with the blueprints by pressing G and just moving it out like that. All right, they should be good to go now. Now let me select those two vertices and I'll press F down the line. Still a little bit wavy right here. I guess this vertex is a little bit screwed up too. So let me press numpad 7 for top view. And you can see it's kind of flat right there. It's not following the curvature. So that's an easy fix. Just press G and move it down and to the right a little bit like that. And that should take care of it. Yeah, cool. Reflections passing through that area nice and clean now. Still stretches a little bit as it gets to the bottom. I think that's just because we need to extrude those vertices down and then we'll really see what it looks like. All right, cool. So let me just go over here and it does get a little wavy in there, but again, we're cutting out that whole area. I'm just paying attention to the right side here, which we have to add back in another edge loop, but we're going to do that once we actually face all the way down. Then we'll add in that extra edge loop for the bevel around the wheel well. But for right now, that's fine. So let's press numpad 1 to go into front view and let's start all of this area now. So what I think we'll do is work on the bottom part of this first. So let me select, let's press numpad 3 for side view. And I'll select this vertex right there. We're just going to extrude this down the line and shape this bottom part. So let me press numpad 7 for top view. And now just press E, and we'll extrude that all the way down to right there. And then press E again and extrude it to there. And then E one more time and extrude it right there. Now let's go into front view by pressing numpad 1, and let's see how we have to align these. All right, so it looks like our blueprints are a little bit off in front and top view. Let me move this down to, well, let's split the difference. It's supposed to end here in front view, but here in top view. So I'll just press G and then X. I'll move that right there. And now let's select these two vertices. I'll press G and then Z and move them down. And I'll select this one, press G and Z and move that down as well. I'm going to leave, this is the top of that area there. In fact, let's check out the reference picture. Let me press Control and up. Let me press the N key as well to get rid of that toolbar. So you can see there's a little flat wall right there above this protrusion. So that's why I left a little bit of space right there. All right, how's that looking so far? It looks good. Let me press numpad 7 for top view, make sure everything's still looking good there. And it is. So now what we'll do, well, let me fix this. I'll press G and Y, move it right on top of the blueprint lines like that. Now we need some vertices in the middle of this edge, and they need to match up with the number of vertices we have up there. So let's see, this vertex here will likely connect to that one. So we need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. So let me press Control and R over that edge loop, or over that edge. And then I'll scroll up on the mouse until I have, what did I say, 7? 7 cuts, and then left click. Now we just need to go into top view and shape these with the blueprints. Now we need to make sure that these vertices are aligned with their counterparts up top. So we're going to start on the right side here. So let me select these 4 vertices and press F. And then I'll press numpad 1 for front view. So you can see these are slanting to the left, whereas we want these to pretty much come straight down, or maybe follow the wheel well curve, which is slightly to the left, but not that much. So let me select that vertex. I'll press G and middle click as I drag to the right, and we'll drag it to right there. So it's sort of following the curvature of the wheel well. And as we go down to the left, we're going to start straightening these out a little bit so that it's pretty much straight down starting from right here. So let me select that. I'll press G and middle click as I drag to the right, and I'll drag it right there. Straightening it out slightly. And same thing with this. Well, let's start making faces. So I'll select those 2 vertices, press F a couple of times down to there. And now let's just straighten these out. And this one will have totally straight. It's a little bit weird up here. So let me select that vertex, press G twice and slide it to the left a little bit like that. That'll help that curvature out up there a little bit. All right, that's as far as I think I need to go with that. I'm not really sure what I'm going to do with that area quite yet. And these faces are just here, just for reference right now. We can actually delete these. So let me press Control and R to add an edge loop right through the middle. Left click, right click, and I'll press X and erase the vertices. And now we can go into top view and align all of these vertices. So let me select that vertex, press numpad 7, and we know that they are exactly where they need to be on the y-axis. So what I'm going to do is, or on the x-axis I mean, so what I'm going to do is just move this on the y-axis. So I'll press G and then Y, move it right over the blueprints like that. Then I'll select the next vertex and do the same thing for all of them. Now I'm going to side view by pressing numpad 3, and we're going to need to fix this in this view as well. So we'll just select all the vertices, press G and then Z, move it right into the middle of the blueprint line. All right, now what we're going to do is take all these vertices and extrude them down. So let me press A to deselect everything. Then I'll press B and left click and drag over all those vertices right there. Let's go into side view by pressing numpad 3. And let's extrude these down at the same angle as our wheel well. So I'll press E and extrude that right vertex down onto the blueprint line and make sure it has the same angle as the wheel well. And then left click. And let's press numpad 1 to go into front view. Again, we're going to follow that angle. But I don't want to move everything over because it slants everything on the left over when I know that these lines are supposed to be straight. So what I'll do is I'll press B and middle click and drag over those vertices to deselect them. Then I'll hold Shift, right click on that vertex once to deselect it, and then again to make it the active selection. And again, we'll make sure our pivot point is set to active element, and we'll just scale it on the x-axis over to that vertex, and that'll give us our angle over here. So let me press S and then X, and scale it that way until it's the same angle as the wheel well. That way, as we go toward the left, you can see these lines are straightening out gradually until they're perfectly straight. Perfect. Let me go back into side view, make sure everything's looking good. Actually, I think it should slant backward a little bit. So let me press Z for wireframe, and I'll press B and left click and drag over those unselected vertices to select them. And then I'll hold Shift, right click on that twice so that it's the active selection. Then I'll press S and then Y, and I'll scale it back a little bit like that. I'm not going to make it as steep as the blueprints. I don't think it's really that steep because it looks kind of mellow in the picture here. It's kind of hard to tell, but whatever. I slanted it back a little bit. That looks good enough to me. Let me press numpad 1 now. Now all we need to do is cut out the right shape for it. Let me press Control and up for full screen. And we'll use the knife tool for this. So let's press the K key. And I'll left click on that edge right there when it highlights, right over the blueprint line. And then I'll drag it over here, but I'll press the C key to constrain the angle. And I'll constrain the angle all the way to this edge right there, and then I'll left click there. And now let's get rid of the constraint by pressing C again. And I'll drag that all the way down to that vertex there. Try and get that to highlight red. It's kind of tough sometimes. Oh my God, come on. I can't believe this. All right, I'll left click there as soon as it highlights red and then press enter. I think I got that right. I'm going to select that and move it around just to make sure there's only one vertex there. Looks good to me. All right, now we can trim the excess from the bottom. So let me press A to deselect everything. Then I'll press B, and I'll left click and drag over all those vertices there, and press X and erase the vertices. Cool, there we go. Now let me select these 4 vertices and press F. And something's bugging me about the reflections up here. We got them looking pretty good, but I think they could look a little bit better. And if you rotate the view like this, you can see that these 2 vertices are sticking up maybe a little bit more than they should, because it starts to dip down over here, and I think that's causing a problem. So from this angle, I'll just select those 2 and press G and move them down like that to mellow it out. And let's see how the reflections look now. Ooh, much better, much better. Such a subtle move too. So now we're going to extrude some of these top vertices down to fill in this area here. And we're going to actually fill that in with faces. We're not going to create this cutout because that's going to involve extra vertices, and that just complicates creating a good curvature. So we're going to keep this simple by facing this area, and then when we go to create a new mesh later on to shrink wrap on top of this, that mesh will have that cutout. So we're going to start off somewhere outside of the cutout, so that vertex there, and then I'll hold Shift and just right click on all these vertices down the line. And let's go into side view by pressing numpad 3. And I want to extrude these down at the same angle as the cutout. Actually, this vertex looks like it's a little out of place. So I'm going to select that, press G twice, and press the up arrow 3 or 4 times. That's good enough. So now let me press B, and I'll left click and drag over all these vertices. Let me go back in the front view, make sure I selected the one outside of the cutout. Then back in side view, whoops, I'll press E and extrude these down at the same angle as the cutout, right to that pocket right there, and then left click. And I'll press E again, and I'll extrude that all the way to the top of the ledge there, and I'll left click there. All right, now let's press numpad 1 for front view. Let's make sure all these bottom vertices are lying on the blueprint lines. So I'll start down here, select those 2 and press G twice, and slide it up to the middle of the line. Same thing with all the others. And now let me show you something real quick. Don't follow along right now. If I select that edge loop there, and I go into side view and I extrude that down to be our flat wall there, you can see that it's not actually flat. Subsurfing is going to smooth that out. So we need to erase the faces right above that. So I'm going to erase the middle of this whole area right here. But to do that, I'm going to need some extra edge loops at the top as well. So let me press Ctrl and Z, get back to where we were. So let's press Ctrl and R in this area right here. Then I'll left click and I'll drag that up to about right there. That's going to sharpen up this angle here as well, which is good. We needed that. But it's also going to make sure that when we delete these vertices, we still have this angled curvature right here. And I'll show you what I mean in a minute. So let me press numpad 1 for front view. Then I'll press A to deselect everything. Then I'll press B and left click and drag over all these vertices and press X and delete them. So that's going to leave some facing here and some facing right there. And all these faces are within the cutout that we're going to make later on. And it's good that we have that overlap, because if for example, we didn't add that edge loop up there, and you can see we have some weird shading in the corner there because it's affecting the curvature. Then we just have this flat wall right there when that should be rounded a little bit on the end. So let me undo that and bring back our vertices. So having some extra vertices within the cutout, that overlap ensures that we maintain this curvature around that bend there, and that we don't have any other curvature problems in the corners. All right, so now let's work on the area down here. Let me press numpad 1 for front view, and I'll press A to deselect everything, and then I'll press B and left click and drag over all these vertices here. Let's extrude these straight down to meet up with this vertex down there. So I'll press E and then Z, and I'll extrude it down to right there is fine. I'll just left click to place it there. I want it to be exactly along this line. So let me hold Shift, right click on that to make it the active element selection. And let's make sure active element is set as our pivot point. Then press S and then Z, hold Control and scale it down to that vertex to 0 and then left click. Now let's hold Shift and right click on that to deselect it. Then I'll press numpad 3 for side view. We just need to pull this back to the right to meet up with the same angle as the protrusion. So I'll press G and then Y and extrude it back to right about there. Looks good. And then left click. So our faces are getting a little bit weird here. That's because some of them are facing different directions. So let me press A once or twice to select everything, and then press Control and N to recalculate the normals. So now they're all facing outward and the shading looks correct. It's still faceted. We need to set smooth for that. So let me press Tab to get out of edit mode. I'll press T and choose smooth shading. All right, let's press Tab to go back into edit mode, and we need a wall over here. So let me press numpad 1. That means we need an extra edge loop going right along there. So let me press Control and R right through there, left click and drag it up to however high you want the wall to be. I think that looks about right. Just a touch higher, maybe a pixel. There we go. All right, I'll drop it there. And let's fill in this gap now. So I'll select that, hold Shift, and then select that. Then press W and choose Merge at last. Then I'll merge them together at the last one selected, and I'll do the same thing down there. Actually, I can just select them in the same order and press Shift and R, and it'll repeat the last process. Cool. And now this transition is too smooth. We should have a hard edge right there. So let me press Control and R right there, left click and drag it to the right to about right there. It's still kind of soft there, but we'll deal with that later on. Now we need to face up this area in here. This part's going to be pretty easy. Let's just hold Shift and right click on all these vertices, and then press numpad 3 for side view. We'll extrude this down for the wall, so let's press E, extrude it down and to the right a little bit, trying to match up the same angle we have the rest of the vertices. So I think that looks about right. I'll drop it there by left clicking. Now let's create a face there. So I'll select those 4 vertices and press F. And again, our faces are kind of pointing in wrong directions. So I'll press A twice to select everything and press Control and N to recalculate those normals. Got some solid faces over there again too. Let me tab out of edit mode, press T and choose smooth shading. All right, tab back into edit mode, and now we just need to face all this up. So I'll select these 4 vertices, create a weird looking quad there, but whatever, it gets the job done. And I'll select those 2 vertices and press F down the line to right there. And if I press numpad 1 for front view, you can see these edges are kind of skewed a little bit. So let me select those 2 vertices. I'll press G twice and I'll move it over, I'll slide it over there, right underneath the other vertices. I'll do the same thing with these 2 vertices. And I actually have these vertices where I want them to be, from top view anyway. So what I'll do is take these 2 vertices, press G twice and slide it to the right a little bit. And that spaces things out evenly there, and everywhere actually. So it's looking pretty clean. Now what do we do with these vertices over here? For right now, I think I'll select all 5 of them and press F to create an endgun. Yeah, it looks fine for now. All right, so the next thing we'll do is just sharpen up the edge right here by pressing Control and R to add a loop cut, left click there, then press E and then F to align it with the top edges. And we'll drag that up to about right there, looks good. Let me tab back into edit mode. And now I think, real quick, I'm going to sharpen up this curvature right up here. At least I'm going to sharpen it up above the grill area. Let me press Control and numpad 1, and then do it again over the image window here. So it looks like, it's hard to tell because we have a reflection there that's just coming across it, it's making it look like there's a hard edge right there. I don't think there is. Over here it looks pretty smooth. But let me just sharpen up the edge above the grill just a little bit. So let me get out of full screen and back into full screen of the 3D view. And I'll hold Alt and right click on that edge loop there. Let me press numpad 3 for side view. And let's see, I don't want to move any of these. I want to leave them exactly where they are. So I'm going to press B and then middle click and drag over all those vertices. So just the ones above the grill. I'll press G twice and slide them down a little bit like that. That's just going to sharpen that up a little bit. And I'll select that. I'll press G twice and slide it down a little bit. And we'll start creating a transition. I'll do the same thing with this. And that looks fine. So it's going to be a little bit softer over here, a little bit sharper over the grill. And I'm pleased with that. I'm happy with that. All right, now let's work on the pocketed area over here. So let me press Control and R right in here, and I'll left click to create an edge loop. I'll drag it up to about right there. This is going to be our line for our pocket. And I added 2 edge loops there just to kind of sharpen that pocketed shape out. So now let me select that vertex, hold Shift and select that one. And I'll press E to extrude it all the way down here. And I'll press S to scale it. And actually let me right click and I'll press the comma key for bounding box scaling. Then I'll scale that down to be about that size. Then I'll press G and I'll move it down here to follow the same angle as the pocket line in the blueprints. And let me press G and I'll move that over there. So it's just a little bit to the right of this vertex. Not really sure what I'm going to be doing with these quite yet. I'm just creating the shape of the pocket right now. Let me press numpad 1 for front view. And I'll press G and then X and I'll move it all the way over here, right above these other vertices. All right, there we go. So now let's add some edge loops right in here. We need 1, 2, we need 3 of them. Let me press numpad 3 for side view. And actually what I think I'll do is I forgot to make this a perfect diagonal over here. Since we have a hard edge right here and then it slopes inward pretty much at a perfect angle and then it kind of curves up and out. Right now we have kind of a bump there. So let me select that, hold shift and select those vertices in that order so that this is the active element. And then I'll press S and whoops, let me right click on that. Let me go back to the pivot point menu down here and choose active element. Now I can press S and middle click as I drag to the right, and that'll kind of shear it for me. And I'll make it so that that's a perfect diagonal going down. So that's going to create a nice curve there. All right, looking good. And now let's straighten this out a little bit as well. So I'll select that, press G twice and slide it to the right a little bit, or left actually. Now let's press numpad 1 to go into front view, and I'll press G and then X and move that to the right so that that's pretty much straight up and down, or slanted to the right just ever so gently. All right, now we can add those edge loops in. So let me press Control and R right through the middle there. Scroll up on the mouse until I have 3 cuts, left click, and then right click to keep them in place. Now I need these to be straight up from these vertices down here. So let's get a reference going by selecting those 2 vertices and pressing F all the way down the line. Now we can see exactly how far we need to move these. So let me select those 2 vertices. I'll press G twice, slide them over there so that it's straight up and down, and I'll do the same thing for the other 2. Now let's press numpad 3 to go into side view. And now to fix this up, we just need to create perfect diagonals right here. So let me press G and then Y, move it to the left until I have a good diagonal line right there. And let's do the same thing with these. Press G and Y, move to the right just a touch. We don't have to make that a perfect diagonal. It kind of mellows out down there anyway. And let me select these 2 vertices now, press G and then Y, move it out to about right there. And then the same thing with these. All right, that should do the trick. Let's press numpad 1 for front view, make sure, and let's press Z for shaded view, make sure that looks nice, and it does. And now for the time being, let's just toss some faces in this area right here. So let me select these 4 vertices and press F, then these 2, press F, F, and shoot, we need to add 1 edge loop right there. So let's go back into side view by pressing numpad 3, and I'll press Control and R to add an edge loop right through there, left click and drag that down. And let's align it with the bottom vertices there. Actually, you know what? I think that might be fine. No, let's align it. Let's press E and then F to align it with the bottom vertices. And we'll drop that right about there. And now let's hold Shift, right click on that vertex, and then do it again to make it an active selection. And we still have that set in our pivot point menu. So let's press S and then Y until we have diagonal lines back, just like that. And let's slide that down just a little bit. So I'll press G twice, slide it down to right there. And now let's select those 4 vertices and press F. And cool, we're getting somewhere. Let me press numpad 1 now. Let's smooth out these edge loops here because we had these going up a diagonal and then all of a sudden they just shoot downward. That's a little strange. So let's mellow that out. I'll select that vertex, press G twice and slide it down to there. Same thing with this. And that's a little bit better. Not sure if that changed much at all, but it looks nicer. I'll take it. So now we have this vertex over there. It's all lonely without a counterpart on the other side. So we're going to have to add an edge loop here, and we'll connect it to this here. And this edge loop here, we're going to have to slide down to connect with that. That's going to leave a large gap right there, so I'll probably end up adding another edge loop. So let's do that now. Let me press numpad 3 for side view, and I'll hold Alt and right click on that edge loop there. I'll press G twice and I'll slide it up to about right there. Looks like it'll be fine. And I'll press G then and move it to the left to restore the shape again. And let me hold Alt. Actually, let me add an edge loop right in the middle now. I'll press Control and R right through the middle, left click, and then left click again. Now let me press G. I'll move that to the left to get our circular shape back. And now let's slide this one down. So let me hold Alt, right click on it, and then press G twice and slide it down to about right here. Then again, I'll press G, move it to the left a little bit to restore the shape. Let me press Tab to get out of edit mode, make sure that still looks circular. I think it does. It's a little sharp right here because we have a couple of vertices on top of each other. We'll worry about that later on. All right, that's looking fine. We got the edge loops we need. I'll probably add an extra edge loop down the middle. I guess I have to connect to this one. But let's work from the top down. So let me press numpad 3 again for side view. And I think these vertices are a little bit too high. I don't want it to be too sharp over here. I just made these closer so that this corner above the grill was sharper. So let me select these two vertices. I'll press G twice and I'll slide them down to about right there. Then I'll select this one, press G twice and slide it up to create more of a transition there, more of a progression. And let's add an edge loop right through here now. So let me press Control and R, left click there, and I'll drag that up to right there. Now I'm going to select those two vertices and press F, and I'll do it one more time to go all the way down. Now let me select those two and press F, and I need to add another edge loop here, but let me make sure everything is shaped correctly right through here. I'm going to push some of these vertices around. I'll select that one, press G twice and slide it up. And same thing with this. Just trying to get this edge, this line here looking pretty nice. I'll slide that up a little bit. And let me slide this one down a little. Same thing with that. All right, that looks good enough. We press numpad 1 for front view, and yeah, that looks very nice. We press numpad 3 again for side view. Let's add an edge loop right through the middle here. So I'll press Control and R, left click there, and I'll drag it up to about right there. And let's slide this one down a little bit. Looks like there's more space down here than there is up here. So I'll hold Alt, right click on it, press G twice and slide it down a little bit. Right into the middle. Then I'll press G, press the left arrow a couple of times to make that nice and circular. All right, now let's select those two vertices and press F, and then F again. And what are we going to do with this little devil down here? I'm not really sure. We'll save that for later on. Let's make sure all of our curvature, all the curvature in the pocket looks nice. And then we'll deal with this area down there next. So I think the curvature generally looks nice. It might be a little flat in there, because if we go into side view, we have nothing but flat vertical lines going through there. So what I think I'll do is have it bumped out more toward the right side, toward the wheel well. I'll try and follow the curvature of the wheel well there, and then it'll gradually get straighter as we head toward the middle of the car. So let me press the A key to deselect everything. Then I'll press B, and left click and drag over all of those vertices there. Now, like I said, I want a progression. I want it to be more curved toward the wheel well and straighter toward the middle. So let me hold Shift. I'll right click on that vertex and then do it again to make it the active selection. And that should still be our pivot point. So now let's press S and then Y. And I'll scale toward that vertex, and I'll make sure that the vertices on the right side are about as curved as the wheel well. And then I'll left click. And you can see there's a progression. It gets straighter as it goes toward the middle. And that curvature looks much nicer now. How about the profile? Let me rotate the car, make sure the profile looks nice. That does, it does indeed. Cool, we're getting there, we're getting there. All right, let me press numpad 1 for front view and go into wireframe view. Now these curves here are looking a little bit strange. We have these diagonals which look nice, but then it kind of flattens out right here. I'm not crazy about that, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm not sure actually. What am I going to do here? I think I'll just move these vertices up. So let me select those two. I'll press G and then Z, move them up like that. Now it kind of ruins the diagonal there, so let me select this vertex. I'll press G. I'll move it to the left to restore that diagonal there. That looks fine. We're looking good there. I think this vertex now, I'll just press G twice and slide it down a little bit. That looks better. And I'll do the same thing with this vertex. I'll press G twice and slide it down. And that's looking better. Let me press numpad 1 for front view. And yeah, that's way better now. Go back into side view. And we have this edge loop here going down, and then all of a sudden it goes upward. I don't think that's going to cause too much damage, but I do feel like straightening it out a little bit. So let me select this vertex. I'll press G twice and slide it up. And same thing with this. That just makes it more gradual. And everything is looking fantastic now. Really is too. All right. So I think we'll start things off by sharpening up the bottom part of the wall right here. So right now it's way too rounded off because we don't have any extra supporting edge loops. So let me press Ctrl and R to add a loop cut through there. However, you can see it kind of goes all the way up to right there. I don't want the edge loop to go through there. I kind of want it to travel this way and then go straight down at this point. So let me select that vertex and I'll press H to hide it. That way when we add an edge loop here, it's just going to stop at that edge right there. So let me press Ctrl and R, left click there, then press E and then F to align it with the top edges. And I'll drop that right about there. Looks fine to me. And we'll deal with this weird end gun over there soon. But let's press Alt and H right now to unhide those other vertices. And let's figure out what we're doing right here. So let me press Ctrl and R right there to add a vertical loop cut. I'll left click and I'll drag it all the way back there. And we will connect these soon, but I know I need to add another edge loop right here. So we'll just hold off on that for the moment. Actually, you know what? Let's just do it now. Let me press Ctrl and R and add another edge loop there. Left click and I'll drag that up to there to sharpen that edge there so we get the right shape going. And let me select that vertex now, hold shift and select that one, then press J to join them together with an edge. And now we can do the same thing with these two. Select those two and press J to join them together, and it's going to put a vertex in the middle of that edge too. It does that automatically. It's pretty cool. And alright, cool. So that whole area is situated. I know we got a triangle right here, but it doesn't look like it's causing any trouble. So I'm just going to leave that as is. Everything looks fine. Alright, now let's work on this situation we got over here. Now I also want to sharpen up this bevel around here. Right now it's a little bit too soft, so we're going to throw down an extra edge loop. So let me press Ctrl and R, get a horizontal loop cut going, and then left click, and we'll drag that down to there. And that sharpens that up nice. Unfortunately, it gives us an extra vertex to worry about over there, but it's kind of necessary. We'll figure something out. And now I need to connect this vertex with one of these. In fact, let's merge these together. I think as I have this flat wall coming around, as it gets closer to the slanted part, it should probably start progressing toward a slant as well. So let me select that vertex. I'll hold, actually, I have auto merge turned on in the header still. So I'll just press G twice, slide it down to that vertex, and then left click, and they'll join together for me. Let me turn that off. I shouldn't have had that on this whole time. That could have caused some trouble. Alright, so we got a triangle there, but I don't think that's going to really cause much damage. So now what we can do is simply select these two vertices and press J to create an edge between them. And let me get out of edit mode and see how things are looking there. So they're looking a little bit strange, and I think that's just because this is bumping out right here at this vertex. So let me press numpad 3 for side view, and let's get this a little bit more slanted. So let me start with this one here. I'll press G, I'll move that over to the left like that. And I'll select this and press G and move it over to the right. And let's get out of edit mode and see how things are looking, and that's definitely better. We've got some crinkly creases there, but that's just because that area right at the moment is pretty low poly. It otherwise looks excellent. Let me press Ctrl and up to get out of full screen, and I'll increase the subdivision levels to 4 for the view, just to make sure everything looks smooth in that section. And cool, it does. Now there's a little crease right here. It's kind of even hard to see, but it doesn't matter anyway, because we're actually cutting a large portion of this area off anyway. So yeah, that actually looks better than expected. All right, let me bring the subdivision levels back down to 2. I'll press Ctrl and up to go back to full screen. And we need to fix this shape with one extra edge loop. So let me press Ctrl and R right there. I'll left click and I'll drag that to the left right there. Now we need to space these vertices up here. We need to space them out evenly. So let me press A to deselect everything, and then B and left click and drag over those. Then I'll just press G twice to slide that to the right. Then I'll select these and I'll press G twice and slide them to the left. Space them out evenly. And let's rotate the view, make sure the reflections are passing through the area cleanly. And sweet. All right, cool. So that actually is going to do it for that area. And now the last piece of this puzzle is dealing with all this crap right here. All right, so let's start off with what we know we have to do. We know we need an extra edge loop on the other side of the bevel here for the wheel well. So let's press Ctrl and R right through there, left click, and then press E and then F to align it with the right side, and we'll drop that right there. Now, remember earlier when we dissolved the vertex, we had this N-gon right here. So now we need to reconnect this back to the other edge loop. So let me right click on that, hold shift and right click on that, and then press J, and all is right in the world. Awesome. We got kind of a bump going on right here with the reflections passing through. Let me go into side view. And I think that's because the curvature mellows out right here when it shouldn't. I think these vertices should move up just a tiny bit because it does look a little flat right there, and I think that's what's causing that. It's subtle, but I just happened to spot that out of the corner of my eye. All right, so let me select that. I'll just press G. I'll move it up and to the left like that to get a good curvature going, one that makes more sense. Same thing with this one. This one up there I'm not going to worry about. We're going to be cutting that area out anyway. So let me press tab to get out of edit mode and see how the reflection passes through. That's better. All right, cool. All right, back down here. So let's add another edge loop in the bottom part of this. So I'll press Control and R there, left click, and drag it over to there. Now let's select those two vertices and press F. And we're going to need to fix these vertices being too close to each other. It's creating a bit of an edge there, but we'll deal with that once we're finished facing this area. So I think I'm going to have these three vertices come down to 1 point so we can have a weird kind of triangle quad there. And let's see how that goes. So let me select that vertex and I'll angle the view like this. I'll just press E and I'll extrude it to right there. Then hold shift, select all four of these vertices and press F. Now let me select that vertex. Let's make sure we have it in the right spot. Right now it's being pulled too far backward. So I'm going to angle the view like this, press G and pull it out a little bit. A little bit more. I want it to go in just a little bit, but not too much. I think that looks good. So it's almost the same depth as the surface, but it's pulled back just a little bit. All right, now we can select these four vertices and press F. And then we can select these four. And unfortunately, it looks like we're going to have to toss a triangle in there. Let me check out the subsurf geometry. It doesn't look that bad, honestly. So as long as the reflections pass through it cleanly, which they pretty much do, that actually came out all right. I think what I'll do is select this vertex and at an angle like this, I'll press G and I'll pull it in a little bit. It was too straight there. I think that makes things look a little bit better. I mean, I'm not seeing any creases with the reflections passing through. I think we're good to go. Let me rotate the view and check out the profile. It looks pretty clean to me. All right, sweet. All right, now all we have to do is fix the bit of a corner we've got going on right here just by separating these vertices. So let me press A to deselect everything, and I'll press B and left click and drag over those vertices. Now I'll press G twice and I'll slide them down to about right there. I don't want it to be too far because it might soften up that bevel, although it still looks fine. And let's select this vertex and press G twice and slide down just a little bit, create more of a progression there. Let me go into front view, and it looks like this is coming down straight and it kind of turns abruptly to the left a little bit. It's kind of subtle, but just to make it smooth, I'm going to select these vertices here. And in front view, I'll press G, and I'll press the left arrow once or twice just to smooth out that curve right there. That should do the trick. Let's see how the reflections are passing through it. All right, cool. Passing through perfectly. Now I also want to select these vertices here, and I'll press G and press the right arrow a couple times so that it restores the circular shape there, at least as much as possible. All right, nice. I think we just got one more thing to do. We need to add a crease value to the rim of all this so that it sharpens up corners like this one right here. So let me hold Alt and I'll right click on that edge loop. Then I'll hold Alt and Shift, right click on that one, and then finally that one. Now I'll press the N key for the right side toolbar, scroll up to the top, and increase the mean crease value to 1. And that'll sharpen up those corners. That's important to have on your guide meshes so that the meshes we shrink wrap on top of it don't end up with rounded corners. So let's go back into the matcap menu, and I'll switch that back to the silver since it's easier on the eyes, and now we can actually appreciate what we made. Get rid of that menu, and there it is. Oh shoot, actually we got to sharpen up this bevel right here by adding another edge loop in. So let's press tab to go back into edit mode, And let's throw that edge loop back in by pressing Control and R. Left click there, then press E to align it with the left side. And we'll drop that right there. That'll sharpen that up nicely. Cool, perfect. All right, awesome. That actually does it for this chapter. If you made it this far, you can definitely do the rest of the course. I think this is going to end up being the hardest part of the car to make. There's just a lot of crap going on with the front end of this. But we made it through.